Usually Rob and I are scrambling to find stories to discuss before our shows. And this week, Francis just gave us like a wealth of stories, and we have this Faith in Film episode planned. And we don't even get to talk about appropriateness.
Oh, yes, we do.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna have to a little bit. And then Father Nick's caused a little bit of a stir this week, talking about biting priests. And there's been so many things to talk about, man. I'm like, I'll tell you, I was like coming up on this. So, all right, we'll let everybody know.
We're not even discussing the biggest subject, which was, of course, you having to get your boat towed.
My boat towed. Listen, and for anybody that's been,
wait, he was towed in a good way or a bad way?
No, I'll tell the story real quick. So, but all right, before that, let me just clue everybody into what's going on. So this is going to be the season finale of this series. We're going to take a little breather from this series, just because we're figuring out all the getting copyright strikes and stuff like that. So we're going to take a little breather from this. We're not taking a breather from Father Nick's, though. He's still going to be joining us as often, if not more often. We're just going to have him on for more of the current event topical stuff because
I love this show, but it's been hard on Rob with the whole counter or the copyright stuff that we were really rolling until YouTube held it against us. And I kind of get why. I mean, it's robots doing it. They see that we're playing movie clips without giving royalties. I rarely defend YouTube, but I can kind of see why we got some hits against us.
Yeah,
because sure. Every time I appeal, it's fine. It just has to go through that process.
Right. It's just it really sunk the fun of having a live chat with everybody.
Yeah, so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to discuss the movie in general on YouTube for a little bit, and then we're going to kill the YouTube feed, and we're going to ask everybody to go follow us on Twitter and watch the show on Twitter. Because there you'll still be able to comment, or locals. But the Twitter is actually good because we still see the comments here. So you guys will be able to live comment from Twitter, which is always good to get audience feedback because these are pretty good discussions. So it's that, and it's also a lot of prep, right? We always got to watch a movie before the show starts and stuff. So I think it'll be good going forward to just be able to.
Of course, this time we only had a week notice because the movie you picked originally was not kosher. Well, yeah.
So the thing is,
nothing from Hollywood is.
Nothing really is, yeah. So I saw Francesco years ago, and I got to be honest, like it doesn't even like dawn on me when you see certain things, I guess. Like Father said, he's like, well, yeah, a heterosexual man's not going to even pick up on something like that. But there was like some male nudity early on in the film, like back nudity and stuff, whatever it was. So we were just
it's the same thing why I was against Apocalypto, that like just because there's things that don't tempt you and me doesn't mean there's people out there who doesn't tempt. So, I mean, a layman has a different view than a priest because a priest has to be thinking of our entire audience, where laymen normally are going to say, well, if I'm not bothered at it, no one is.
Yeah.
And now we know exactly what Francis would have called that part of the movie.
The Frociagine section of Francesco.
Well, for a very short time, I mean, let me read you guys, as long as we're jumping into this. This is directly from the Vatican News website. It says, the director of the Holy See press office affirms that the Pope never intended to offend or express himself in homophobic terms, and he apologizes to those who felt offended. Now, that's not even a term I use. I don't think it's actually a good term. I know you guys enjoyed it, but I knew it was going to be a 24-hour countdown before they walked it back. Sure. I can't believe how many conservatives thought this was going to be a win. It's like, have you guys never studied anything on Peronism? Have you never not that you guys are doing it, but I saw all these big names thought it was some win. It's like,
no, I think everybody just thought it was funny. I think you're right. I did see a lot of people say, well, you see a lot of the Zoomers thought it was like Pope Francis is so base. I just thought it was an old man using a term that he doesn't even know is politically incorrect.
Had you ever heard that in your, I mean, I know
I
never heard that in the streets of Brooklyn or anything.
No, but the phrase
it's like my
faggotry is very
using
funny.
the other name for Brazil nuts and not knowing why everyone's offended at it.
Exactly, yeah.
Didn't Michael Knowles say he had never heard that word?
Yeah, because this is the actual word you would use in Italian. That's the actual word you would use in Italian. Like that's what you'll hear. Like and Sicilian, it would be like fanook. Like they'll just say fanook. Like it won't even be.
So you're saying this is a difference between Argentinian Italian and Italian Italian?
I think this is.
I didn't think there was Argentinian Italian.
I think it's more. It's just not a colloquial.
That looked like it rhymed with Pinocchio.
Yeah, I was thinking that. It's like, what are we saying about Pinocchio?
I think that it's a term that maybe I just think Francis is out of touch and didn't even realize it. Like he really had no idea it was offensive. Like we're all laughing because the word faggotry is hilarious, especially as translated into English. So I don't know if he even had any idea that it was offensive. But I think if he just stuck with that theme for a good week or two, like think of all the conversions that would happen. You got to think about how messy the Protestant like mainline world is. Those guys are starving for somebody to come out and just put their foot down against the rainbow stuff. If Francis really would have just stuck with this theme for a little bit, you would have gotten a lot of conversions.
Have you guys forgotten about Fiducia Supplica? Don't get my blood pressure up. Don't get my blood pressure up. I mean, give me a break.
There's a Protestant on
Fiducia
Twitter
Supplicans happened like a few months ago, guys.
I know.
There's no, you don't turn an ocean liner around just for some likes on Twitter. It doesn't work like that. We know the trajectory of this man's lack of faith.
Okay, so how about the other all right, so I'll tell everybody what
wait,
happened.
real quick, but on that term,
ahead.
I see what you're saying, Anthony. That could be like an old-fashioned term for like ballyhoo. Remember the scene in Good Will Hunting when Good Will Hunting is talking to the gay psychologist, and he's like, "Enough of the ballyhoo."
Yeah,
so you might be describing it as just like an old man term for goofing around.
It'd be like buggery, like saying buggery.
Buggery,
like
right.
Buggery is like the English would say buggery, and
that's right,
like,
because we all had to go Google that when Austin Powers came out. Nobody knew what had a penchant for buggery. We were all like, what does that mean?
So I think it's just one of those words in France.
And I'm not promoting another movie. I keep saying, I quote them and then I say don't watch them. But I didn't know these things 20 years ago. I shouldn't be watching Austin Powers.
And the thing is, you don't remember the awful things about pop culture before you're in the faith.
Yeah, that's right.
You really don't. You just, those things don't even stand out to you. And then later on, you go back and rewatch them and you're like, wow, I was really desensitized.
I tried to watch Little Trouble in Big Trouble in Little China a few years ago, and I couldn't believe how often it misused our Lord's name. Yeah. Same thing with Back to the Future. Michael J. Fox is constantly misusing the holy name of Jesus.
Yeah. And that was just so normalized in the 80s.
In the 80s, yeah, it was worse. Mm-hmm. And then you have movies where you think that they would misuse our Lord's name constantly, like Lone Survivor with Mark Wahlberg. Our Lord's name is not there's a lot of the F word is every 5 words in that movie, but they never misuse our Lord's name once in that movie.
Well, that was my issue with Father Stu, right?
Yeah.
Like Father Stu, I could deal with F-bombs. I mean, I do think it was a little over the top vulgar, but it was the taking the Lord's name in vain so repetitively that was the hardest part I had of it. But the end scene really was a phenomenal scene, but it was a tricky one for me to get through. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, should we even? I'm not going to. The only thing I will say is, for anybody that was following along in the past couple of episodes, I talked about my son was in this thing called Senior Assassin. It started with 100 teams, so there was 200 kids. They had each team, each week, a team would be assigned another team, and they would have to go and squirt them with a water gun to get them out, and you had to video the whole thing. So every week the teams got cut in half, but there was ways they could get more teams out. We thought this thing was going to last 7 weeks. It wound up lasting like 5 weeks. My son won Senior Assassin yesterday, so there was 100 teams. My son was in the top 2 this week, and he wound up getting his team out on Sunday. He got his team out. The other team out, and that's it. My son won. I can't believe it, man, because the past 5 weeks have been my son sending my daughter out as bait. Every time he would go to leave the house, he would make her wear his hat, and like she'd have to go out to his car and pretend she's him. And it's just been mayhem. He's slept at my mom's house one night, like just the craziest stuff's been going on. But he finally won, and I'm very happy for him. I think he won like $2,000.
I guess you trained him well.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of the little bit of the hitman in him. So, but all right. So to the topic at hand, general thoughts of the movie. It's been a while since I saw it. I do own the movie. It's probably been about 2 years since I saw it and watched it in full. And I forgot how good this movie was. It's really is a very good movie.
Should we give the historical background before we jump in?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so was it 1917? Actually, it was interesting. The opening scene quotes 1917. I'm sure 95% of our listeners know why 1917 was important. It's Our Lady of Fatima. It's also the Bolshevik Revolution, but the opening scene says anti-clerical laws written into the Constitution. It was in 1917 that there were anti-clerical laws written into the Mexican Constitution. Then the movie takes place a decade later. So it's in the 1920s that communists take over under Calles. I had heard that this was due to the the United States government had planted Calles and those people to destroy Catholicism. I don't have the proof on that, but it was a Mexican woman and her husband with books in hand once telling me North Americans did this to Mexico. I don't come with the sources on that because I don't have time to prepare it. But I think people can do a little research out there and find it. Anyway, 1920s, communists take over, and a group of real blue-collar ranchers decide to fight back against the communists. I think it's 40,000 men on horseback. They're the ones with the bolts strapped across their chests. They're good Catholics. Maybe they're not the best catechized Catholics, but actually probably 100 years ago, they probably were much better catechized than even most priests today. And then they take the battle to the communists, and they're known as the Cristeros. Now, what's interesting is I believe the Pope told the bishops of Mexico to stand down. I think the bishops of Mexico told people to stand down, and the Cristeros disobeyed. This shows that really this question of obedience actually precedes even Vatican II on some of these things. Maybe we can make the argument that the bishops just told the clergy to stand down. I don't know. But the Cristeros, either way, whether they got the message or not, whether they got the memo from the Pope or not, they did not stand down. And they decided to fight for Christ and Our Lady of Guadalupe. And they decided to stop, the communists coming into churches, stepping on the Eucharist, raping countless women.
It's interesting because we've been discussing lightly the past episode or two the theme of when is it okay to defend our Lord, right? Like
Yep.
we talked about it and we have to talk about the biting priest while we're on this subject because this movie does kind of delve into this theme where it starts off they want to do an economic boycott. And I was just thinking about in modern times how disunified Catholicism is in America, that an economic boycott of faithful Catholics wouldn't even put a dent in anything. It wouldn't even be noticed, nor do I think people are even willing to forego pleasure enough to even stick to a boycott. But you do see this theme of violence coming up. And at one point, one of the main characters, a woman, says, "Where has all this violence gotten us?" Things like that, right? Now, we discussed last episode lightly, would it be okay to use force to defend Jesus in the Eucharist? And then this week we had a priest who, it seems like this whole thing was set up. It was videotaped the whole time. And a woman went to receive earlier in the day. The priest knew something was up and he denies her communion. She goes back later on that day, goes to reach for a host. The priest pulls away again. She starts to get a little violent with him and he bites her. Now, my first instinct was heroic priest. Like, yes, he did anything to defend the Eucharist. Father Nix, you had a little bit of a different take on it. What was your take on this?
So this is where I'm just going to stay off Twitter because to use Rob's hero Michael Lofton's term, nuanced. We have to be a little bit more nuanced, and I'm not nuanced on Twitter when I just get on. So let me be really clear what I do agree with everyone on. The case of Father Rodriguez, he certainly had every right to use physical force to stop it. Where I wasn't nuanced, and I do think it's funny how often certain people use that term, but I will use the term nuance. Where I wasn't nuanced enough is just to say, I think a priest has to go through in his mind, if it does come down to physically stopping someone from attacking the Eucharist, how he would do it. And there's a lot of people on Twitter who said, you don't know what you would have done. Well, yeah, I do. I don't know of any priest more than myself who's had more weird situations in dealing with the Eucharist. So I do go through these things in my mind. I 100% 0.0%. I 100% believe Father Rodriguez had every right to use physical force to protect the Eucharist. I just mean the pathways in the brain of a priest like me, who's gone through this in his mind, and maybe for some other reasons we won't get into, is going to kick the person or shield the person, maybe push him away. I think it's a little weird to bite. I still think that's weird, but
it's a weird instinctual response.
It's exactly. I mean, the kind of the example I was going to use, and I really want the foreground of my thrust of what I'm saying here is to really bless and honor Father Rodriguez. I definitely think he did the right thing. But like, imagine if like Rob came out to New York City and saw Anthony, and imagine Anthony had like his hands full of tar for New York City, couldn't drop something, and they got in a fight on co-sleeping, and then we find out they ended up in a fight, and Anthony holding tar in his hands right as the fight breaks out bites Rob. We'd all be like, hey, that's cool, those two got in a fist fight, but wait, did you just say Anthony bit Rob? I mean, so like, I think Catholics just have such low expectations.
I'm going to tell you,
biting. Like, Catholics have a really different expectation of priest masculinity than lay people.
That would be my nickname.
Pinocchio.
Yeah,
that would be my nickname.
You'd be either teeth or chomper or bites. If that, you would never lose that nickname. As an ex-paramedic, we got the nickname of what we were least proud of on the ambulance.
Yeah. I definitely see your point. I think the only person that made a valid point to you was somebody said he's an older priest on the verge of retirement, right?
Yeah.
So this is a guy, like, he's probably not strong in stature. Maybe, I mean, like you said, he had the right to use physical violence and he had the right instinct.
Yes.
It just, and we don't want to make any accusations or detract anybody. It just seemed like a strange way to defend the Eucharist, I think.
Do you think we just didn't mention that? Come on, we definitely mentioned it.
Or, like me as a paramedic, I mean, I have my Kevlar vest in my hermitage here, right? No, it's not effective. Contra 87 said biting is effective. Let me give you an example. I have a Kevlar vest there. We were wrestling patients all the time. We might have IVs in our hands, everything else. We had to wrestle people, tie them to a pram. We were often in physical tussles with the cops backing us, with firefighters backing us as city paramedics. But if I were tussling with a patient, like say some patient on meth that I had to strap to the pram in the back of my ambulance, if it got out, I bit him, I would be fired immediately, if for no other reason than
sanitary
hazmat. Yeah, I mean that's
sanitary, bloodborne pathogens.
Yeah, and then the fact that Father Rodriguez knew of their lifestyles by the conversations leading up to it. I mean, that's extremely unsanitary for himself. Even if I get it, and now no one's planned this stuff out. Well, I have planned it out, and I think that's extremely unsanitary. And he should, may want to get some tests. Maybe
Francis's comments this week were in light of fighting priests. Who knows? Maybe that's why he went
those seminary self-defense classes. Just
they don't make priests
too much buggery going on.
Honestly, what a tremendously weird week. When Frank Walker linked that on his, Frank Walker often has very outrageous.
Frank Walker from Canon 212.
Yeah, Canon 212. He often has outrageous hyperlinks that don't really. I mean, it's usually an exaggeration. So it was like, priest bites person stealing the Eucharist. I thought, that's an exaggeration. Then I click on the Catholic News Agency story, and it's literally that.
Do you talk to Frank Walker?
Yeah, we got to meet at a dinner. It was an SSPX dinner down in Florida. We met at just 2 weeks ago. We had dinner together.
I miss his videos, man. I used to watch his videos every day when he was doing it. He would do like these 15, 20-minute videos every day. I would watch.
They're still on Rumble. I still watch them.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, go to Rumble.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll have to check him out again. I always like Frank. He's got a very dry sense of humor, and he's a man's man,
Yeah, he is. He's a good man.
Okay, so all right. So the Vatican tells these
Anthony,
okay,
sorry.
Yeah.
Could I give some more historical background to Mexico or the history of Mexico?
Connor?
What?
Can someone introduce Connor?
Oh yeah, no, I you know what? I just assume everybody knows Connor. Connor has his own channel, Plotlines. and we invited him on because he really does a lot of his show is called Plot Lines because he likes to discuss movie themes and things like that. So we thought he would be the perfect guest for this episode. If you guys aren't subscribed to Plot Lines, please go and subscribe. He's got some great interviews on his channel.
Yeah.
And this is perfect movie for me because I also like talking about history, and being this is a historical movie as well, it works perfectly. But so this Constitution in 1917 is in response or is brought about by a revolution. And Mexico has been going back and forth between different generals. Different types of generals have battled each other over control. And the 1917 Constitution is based off of the 1857 Constitution under Benito Juarez, who was also anti-clerical. And there is this Cristero conflict also goes back in some ways to an attempt by the French to put a Habsburg on the throne of Mexico as the Empire of Mexico. And it succeeded briefly until the British and I think it was the Dutch, maybe, can't remember. It was there were three European powers that basically helped put Mexico or put Maximilian, Emperor Maximilian, on the throne. But once Britain realized that France was trying to basically get a pro-French government on the throne, they basically backed away. And when they backed away, America, after the Civil War, more or less, also stopped them from being able to or basically put pressure and assisted Juarez in retaking the country. So basically, Mexico has had this battle between clericalism and anti-clericalism going back for a few hundred or at least 100 years at this point. And the 1917 Constitution already had these anti-clerical laws, but it took a while for them to actually be enforced. And this is where the movie comes into play. Calles begins to enforce the anti-clerical laws, which basically precludes the church from owning any property, for one.
What you really have to back up even further, because Our Lady appears to Juan Diego and all of South America converts to Catholicism, right? This is second Christendom comes about. I got that term from Tim Flanders from his book, because it never it really hit me like a ton of bricks when I realized you have the Reformation going on in Europe. You have all these conquistadors and the Jesuits coming to the New World and having no success. Then Our Lady appears to Juan Diego and the entire continent converts within 2 decades, right? Now, ever since that happens, you have, after American independence comes, you basically have the start of America trying to undermine the Catholicity of South America with all these, their idea of democracy and all these different things, but they're really trying to undermine Catholicism in all of these nations. And it's always this subversive thing that America's in. So a lot of people think America is this amazing country, but America was always doing these subversive things to undermine the Catholic Church, because it's Protestant to its core and Freemasonic.
We helped assassinate Gabriel Garcia Moreno in Ecuador in 1875. I mean, so yeah, we had been interfering for as long as we were able to.
Always with the intent to undermine Christendom.
Yeah, and this is a product of the Monroe Doctrine. This is the Monroe Doctrine was basically to the Europeans, you will not be allowed to interfere, and this really precluded Spain from reestablishing its colonies and its authority over its colonies, which was a big detriment to Catholicism in Central and South America. And more or less, this is what has led to the Mexican revolutions and the anti-clerical governments. And this was all a consequence of Napoleon as well, which ties back to the French Revolution as well.
Yeah, it's such an interesting period in history. You have Our Lady appearing in Fatima. You have right after Napoleon. You have, oh man, it really is an interesting time period.
Now with with this particular president. Number one, never trust a guy named Plutarch. His first name was Plutarch. Second off, he was supported pretty staunchly by the American Federation of Labor, so basically by American labor unions. And then also President Calvin Coolidge, before Callis was elected, the Obregon, who was the previous president that Callis worked under, was about to be overthrown, but President Calvin Coolidge sent our Navy to blockade their Gulf Coast to prevent rebels from getting arms, and then also to deliver arms to Obregon. So, yeah, America was pretty heavily involved in getting Callis to power.
We really are the worst. I think. All right. Well, Rob. Okay. So, how about this? The ambassador in the movie. Do you think he's portrayed as a villain or a good guy in the movie itself? I think they tried to make him seem neutral, but like he's very clearly trying to play both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
You know, not sure which horse to back and to see which one's going to win the fight. He's just kind of playing it from both ends.
And you hear him give that one plug for the Knights of Columbus because they funded the movie, which I don't have a problem with. I just think it's an interesting fact.
I tell you, it's in terms of production value and story, I think it's probably one of the best Catholic movies, other than The Passion. I think it's probably the best Catholic film.
Like, I would agree in terms of being like outwardly Catholic. It's still a little like campy in a sense in some areas, you know, like
it's not that it's campy. I know what you're saying. I think it's that the theme is religious freedom.
There's
those
that,
are two different No, I'm going to agree with both of you. I think it is campy a little bit. I'll have to give my whole theory on fake. All right, can I just give my theory on fake accents real quick? I don't understand the point of it. It's not like American speaking, and not, granted, now if they're Mexicans speaking English, I'm totally fine with there being an accent. But I think it's weird. This is one of my problems with The Chosen. I don't know why I keep bringing up The Chosen. But like the people like give it another chance, and the reason I can't make it 5 minutes in is the accents are so bad. Like Layla Miller, she's a friend of mine, and her dad was from Palestine. And she says it's like the worst Middle Eastern accent that her family's ever heard. Yeah. And so my theory is, how does speaking in a Palestinian accent in English, like by analogy, is that somehow closer to how, you know, Christ and his friends spoke Aramaic? Of course not. I like how BBC did Chernobyl. Do you guys ever see Chernobyl?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, I saw the HBO version.
Yeah, the HBO version.
Okay, so yeah, that was amazing.
They all spoke in British accent. There was no need to do a fake. So why would a fake Russian accent by a bunch of British actors be closer to Russian than just speaking English with a British accent? It's not.
Yeah.
So I just think it's silly to speak in an accent, because by analogy, it's not like, you know, was
so
Christ.
You think that made it campy? Because
no, because I'm fine with all the Mexican speaking, but I thought it was weird.
Andy Garcia.
Well, but he was born in Cuba, so that's okay. Yeah. Well, I don't know what his normal accent. Actually, yeah. I mean,
he plays an Italian in most movies. Like he's in Godfather 3. He typically
he had a decent accent, and he's from Cuba, so I guess that's okay. But when I hear Americans speaking in a goofy accent, but I see what, even with the accents aside, I see what Rob's saying about
it seems like a really good made for TV movie. Not
right.
like,
you think so?
Yeah.
It is low budget, and also just the beginning of the movie, it just seems like it seems a little campy the way they're portraying the president and stuff like that. It just I would say it gets better as the movie progresses.
It does.
The beginning of the movie.
Was this your first time seeing it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
It was your first time seeing it.
Yeah. Okay, I had heard that it existed.
But real quick, Anthony, I mean, on a level, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F, A, B, C, D, and F, I would definitely give it, maybe not A+, but I definitely agree with you. This is an A movie.
Yeah, it is.
But Anthony, let's talk about what you mentioned. See, Knights of Columbus funded it for the sake of religious freedom. All four of us are traditional Catholics who technically reject religious freedom.
Yeah.
And I would actually make the argument that the Cristeros, anyone who says Viva Cristo Rey, for the establishment of Christ, not only in the hearts of people, but the social reign of Christ, the King, which all these unlettered, illiterate Cristeros were fighting for, they were not fighting for religious freedom. That's a huge thing the Knights of Columbus who funded it totally missed in this movie. Then think of the very term Viva Cristo Rey. What is now I'm fine if you speak Oh, that was my problem. They would speak English and then only say Mexico. It's like, well, are you going to say, so when people say like Chile, me and my girlfriend went to Chile. It's like, okay, you can do that, but then you better say like Nippon for Japan. You better say Argentina. Like, I'm fine if you call Mexico, Mexico, or Mexico, Mexico, but then you better do the same for like, oh, I got married in France and then we did our honeymoon in Italia. Like, nobody does that. Here's my thing. I just want people to stay consistent. Okay, but the very term Viva Cristo Rey, that means long live Christ the King. That doesn't mean just in our hearts. That is directly the social reign of Christ the King, which stands at 180 degrees away from the Vatican II idea of religious freedom. Because here's the thing, who gave the right to follow a false religion? God can't do that.
Yeah.
God does not give the right to follow a false religion. He can only give you the right to follow the one true religion, which is Catholicism, which the Cristeros recognized was following Christ the King. The Vatican II idea of religious freedom means everyone, even those of false religions, have a right to follow the false religion. Now, I'm not saying we should go do forced conversions upon them. The Catholic Church has never held false conversions. But from whom, here's the big kicker for all the listeners to really realize, from whom do rights come? From God or from man?
From God.
And unfortunately, Knights of Columbus and Vatican II answer from man. No. Rights come from God. God can never give you
in the American
right to follow
Constitution
a false religion like communism or Buddhism or Hinduism. He tolerates those religions, and so should Catholics. I'm not saying there should be any persecution of those people. We always tolerate false religions, but God never gave them a positive right to worship idols.
Yeah, it has its modernity and modernist themes thrown in there for sure.
It's ironic that it's a movie about Catholics fighting against Freemasonry when much of the theme of the movie is Freemasonic itself.
Yeah.
Rob just went way past me.
I gotta say this though. I think like a lot of these movies, because you're watching them, I think we put a lower bar because they're Catholic.
Yeah.
So like you saying it's an A, like I have to imagine if I saw this, I don't know. Do I love it because it's Catholic and I'm giving such a low bar, or would anybody that saw this movie think it was an A movie? Or do we just have an affinity for it or an attachment to it because it's Catholic? I don't. So maybe I do set the bar lower. I just think it's a great movie. It's one of those movies I can watch over.
I think it's a good movie for lukewarm Catholics to like reignite them in the faith. I think if you showed it to your average non-Catholic American, they probably would not think it's a great movie.
Yeah.
See, we have such poor leadership in the Catholic Church right now. I mean, do you realize how desperate Catholics are for a win right now? Like the whole biting thing, I look at it like people are desperate for a win. The faggotry thing, people are desperate for a win, right? I mean, we're not doing what Catholics did 100 years ago, producing saints, producing awesome movies, clarity from the Vatican, all this stuff. But we are such losers in modernism right now. We will take anything as a win. But I didn't even say the word Freemason. Tell us what you mean by that, Rob, because I didn't even have a criticism of the movie that harsh.
Well, religious freedom. The whole idea of all religions being equal and having freedom is at its, it's kind of like the central tenet of Freemasonry.
Can
I make a defense of the movie slightly? Not necessarily from the perspective of the makers. They might be trying to get across this that Freemasonic idea of religious freedom, but when it comes across from these Mexican or from these Cristeros, I don't see it as religious freedom. I felt sort of similar when they say for absolute freedom, for religious freedom. Like I feel a little cringy when I think about it or when I heard it, but I think that it's more because of being an American.
Yeah.
But in Mexico, what would they mean when they would be saying religious freedom? In Mexico, the threat at this time was the church being absorbed into the state. The state was trying to basically make a Church of England in Mexico. So what did freedom of religion in Mexico at that point mean? There really wasn't any Protestants. I mean, there were some, like
In 1917. You're right.
Protestantism wasn't really a threat to the Mexican government. That's actually why the few Protestants that lived there accepted the laws, because Protestantism, especially in a non-American context, basically is usually a tool of the state than anything else. And you could argue it's somewhat of a tool of the state anyways, even in America, but it doesn't feel like that sometimes. It feels like the Protestants, at least some Protestants, tend to be fighting against the government. But in the Mexican context, it doesn't come off as religious freedom for all. It comes up, the bad moment was when they basically said that they were fighting for democracy. I think that was the more ridiculous thing, because of the historical nature of the more traditional or more conservative groups in Mexico. They would have been more interested in putting the emperor back on the throne.
Well, when I was in seminary, though, I defended Vatican II, saying the whole notion of religious freedom in Vatican II makes sense because they were speaking about Catholics in China and Catholics in Middle Eastern countries, that they just wanted our Catholics to have religious freedom under communist governments. The problem, though, with that argument is it still overturns our dogma, which stands against the Freemasonic notion of religious freedom. But I'll give you this, Connor. I do believe, despite the couple lines you have promoting religious freedom, I do believe they did make a movie of the Cristeros fighting for Christ to be king of Mexico and Mary to be queen of Mexico. So despite a couple little wonky aspects of vocabulary, I do think it was a movie fighting for Christ the King.
I agree that those lines honestly seem out of place. Like they were forced in there by, like you said, whoever was funding the movie, which was the Knights of Columbus.
I'm going to say this too. I think the acting was phenomenal. Like I think especially the guy that's in Dune. What's his name, Rob? The guy from Dune that's in it. It's like
the one who played Chavez?
No. The dude.
Catorce?
The guy who kills like 20 guys at
14,
the house.
Catorce is 14.
Catorce, yeah. That guy.
Oscar Isaac is the actor.
He's Paul Atreides' father in Dune. He just looks nothing like that anymore.
Oh, wow, you're right.
Right? It's the same guy.
No, how did I not know that?
Unfortunately, he's also in the sequels of Star Wars.
Yeah, he's in a bunch of stuff.
Right. You're right. Yep.
Yeah.
So
and he was born in Guatemala. So, and I did look up briefly just Father Nix was talking about accents and stuff like that. A lot of the actors were born in either Chile, Guatemala, Cuba, and some were in Texas in sort of Hispanic households. So
no, you know what? That's totally fine. I should have been talking about accents and shows. The only thing that bothered me is them saying Mexico when they were speaking English.
Oh yeah, it's very dumb. I mean, but they changed in like sometimes they were just talking straight Spanish sometimes.
Sure,
which was also a little weird.
And I know Eduardo Verástegui in real life. I've talked to him in real life about him running for president, and I mean his accent in real life is the same as you heard.
That's his accent. Yeah.
Wait, he's actually Mexican. Yeah.
You want to know what I think?
So
right
Oscar
away
Isaac. His name is Oscar Isaac Hernandez Estrada. I didn't know that. Okay.
The first thing I thought when you said the accent thing wasn't even The Chosen. It's Al Pacino in Scarface, which I hated that movie because Al Pacino is playing like a Cuban, and he's trying, like he talks like a kid. Like I'm so used to seeing Pacino as the Italian guy that when he plays the Cuban, it just threw me. I couldn't stand Scarface.
No, see, I'm okay if someone's playing someone else for like, if someone's a Cuban immigrant in a mafia movie and they have a Cuban accent, that's fine. What bothers me is if it's an entire culture being represented and everyone speaks English in that fake accent and they're never even from that place themselves. That's what drives me nuts.
We're basically just ripping on The Chosen.
You need some authenticity. And, there are like, if you follow the British model, most British movies just, either go, mostly just use the British accent, even when they're portraying Germans or whoever, whatever the actor's accent is. Just look at Valkyrie. Nobody puts on an accent in the movie Valkyrie.
I guess they didn't in Napoleon. I think Napoleon was American made. I didn't watch it because of some immodesty or taking our Lord's name in vain. But one of the little thumbnails I saw said, I mean, it was actually people complaining they didn't speak in a French accent. I thought, awesome, that's great. Why? I mean, if you're going to make a movie of Napoleon and all of his friends, and you're all Americans, you don't have to do a French accent. Just speak in American English.
Well, do you hold the same standard to Lord of the Rings? Because those are all American actors speaking with English accents.
I'm fine if you normalize it in one, like that's okay with me, because they all decided we have a British author, J.R.R. Tolkien, a bunch of British and New Zealand and Australian actors. I'm fine if everyone just decides in one accent.
Yeah.
If it's like the language of one of the languages they speak. Okay, we've spent too much time on this.
Yeah,
well, can I say one last thing about the accent thing? Peter O'Toole, who is an amazing actor and played Henry II in Beckett as well.
Second movie in a row with Peter O'Toole.
Yeah, this is his last movie before he died.
Yep.
Or at least
and he stuck with the English accent.
Well, yeah, and his the person he played was not an Englishman. Like he was definitely I think Spanish of some kind, Hispanic. So he stuck with his actual accent in the character.
And wait, I speak French, Spanish, and Portuguese. I'm not against learning languages. I just think it's silly to say I'm going to go to Chile, but I'm going to go to Italy. No. Say Chile, and Italia.
Chile and Mexico.
I'm going to Chile because I'm speaking English. I'm going to go to Chile.
People generally only do that with countries they, in their head or like subconsciously, think are below them.
Exactly. You hit it right on the head, Rob. It's condescending by making them higher than you, but it's actually condescending.
That's why I'm really trying to nail the Chinese accent over the years. I'm working really hard at it. I've been really trying to get the Chinese accent down. All right.
When Father Nick was talking about Big Trouble in Little China, I was like, well, Anthony's not allowed in Little China anymore.
Very, very dangerous.
Have you paved streets in Little China, Anthony?
I never saw it, no.
No, have you paved streets in Little China?
Like that part of in Brooklyn's Little China.
Not
so
Manhattan.
There's section. Okay, so should I get controversial right now?
I want to hear about it.
Oh boy.
Do
I have a banner?
There's two groups of people you don't look. I work in all different communities. Okay, now part of my job is
you only preface something with that when you.
I'm gonna try and say this as gently as I can.
So you remember, I do have a black friend.
Down on.
So listen, no, because okay, so part of my job is we're doing patchwork, and there will be cars parked on our jobs when we get there, and we have to go knock around on houses and ask them to move their cars. When I'm in the low-income Black community, you could not find a nicer group of people. They're so happy to help you. Yeah, like the neighbors will come out. Oh, I know that guy. They're the nicest people you'll ever come across in your life. When you work in an Asian area, there's something about the way, because they're all immigrants and they come from China typically. There's something robotic about people that actually come from China where they get into work mode and they don't see anything going on around them. They're just in their mode of work, and it's very difficult to work in those areas. The other people,
I know.
I will be accused of being like Nick Fuentes, so I have to be careful. But the most awful drivers on the planet are not even Asian women. It is Hasidic bus drivers.
Really?
Hasidic bus drivers are a nightmare. That's all I'll say. They are so hard to deal with, man. Can
you flag the Palestinian flag behind Anthony right there?
It's just I think that if you're part of a group of people who have been told for 10,000 years, essentially, or 8,000 years, that you're the chosen people, I think that has an effect on the psyche of a people. You know,
right? 8,000 years old.
Well, 6,000, I guess, right? 6,000. Yeah, I'm
still new to the younger stuff.
Yeah, I'm 6,000. Yeah. Like, but I just think that has an effect on the psyche of a people. You know, it's like,
I mean, Hasidic bus drivers in Brooklyn, if you guys are paving a street, you're not saying they're going to just run over you guys paving a street. Really?
Depends if they've heard Anthony say something or not.
Listen to me. It's almost like you're in their area. You're
Wow.
let's get away from this conversation. This is a locals conversation.
Sean in the comments was saying that Peter O'Toole's character isn't Mexican. The person he's playing, the real life person he's trying to portray, was a Mexican priest. They changed the narrative of his character to say that he came over there, but the real person was a Mexican priest. So they just made it, they changed that minorly in order to make Peter O'Toole's playing him
like he was like a British missionary that came over.
Yes, but the real person that Father Christopher was Father Cristobal Magallanes.
Yeah, I'm okay with some artistic license like that. That's fine.
Yeah, no, it's good. I just wanted to clarify what I meant by the fact that, you know, Peter O'Toole could have, you know.
But how do we know that's Father Cristobal, considering there were hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of Catholic priest martyrs in this? How do we know it was? Why was it him if there was thousands of priests killed?
I'm guessing it has something to do with the story of Jose.
Oh, Joselito.
Yeah, they know what village he was from, and
yeah, I'm guessing that has. I mean, maybe it's a little off.
There's a funny comment in the live chat there. I'd rather they change the character than try to make O'Toole look Mexican.
It's true.
Yeah.
All right, so listen, we have more people watching on Twitter than we do on YouTube right now. So anybody that's watching on YouTube, go to either my Twitter feed, Rob's Twitter feed, or the Avoiding Babylon Twitter feed. We're going to play some clips, and I'm going to explain to you guys what it's like working around Hasidic bus drivers.
Can I say something about plot lines before we go?
Yes, of course, absolutely.
Just plot lines. I talk about fiction, politics, history, all in the connection with Catholicism. So I recently did a stream with Charles Coulombe on the on Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, the translation by J.R.R. Tolkien. I also discussed sort of the libertarian political situation going on with the convention, as well as I'm going to be doing tomorrow a live stream about Tolkien's true religion and false religion within the world of Middle Earth.
Very good. Yeah, Connor has some awesome interviews. If you guys go back and just search through some of his interviews are really, really, really good. He's had Gavin Ashenden on a few times. He's had Charles Coulombe on a few times. He's got some really good interviews. So go check out Connor's plot lines. And even if you guys haven't seen this movie, we're going to play clips from the movie.
I was going to say, we can't do it on YouTube, guys.
We're going to make it free on Locals. We'll make it free on Locals. You guys don't have to pay to see it on Locals. It's free on Locals. So go join our Locals and you guys can watch it for free. So anybody that's like, I don't want to pay for Locals, it's free. Just go download Locals. So sign up. You don't have to pay for it. Rob will make it. It won't be behind the paywall. So we want everybody that can watch it to watch it. And we'll see you guys on the other side.
Hey, real quick, before you flip over, I got a cool story for you guys. So, I was a priest in Fort Collins. It was my last Novus Ordo assignment right off the campus of Colorado State University. And I knew a lot of students there. A lot of them got married. One of the couples that got married, they had me over for dinner just like 2 or 3 weeks ago. They listened to you guys on, at least the dad of the husband of the family listens to you guys on Locals, like every one of your shows. And I didn't get him in.
Get out of here.
Yeah, I didn't even get him into you guys. And he listens. And you know what? I didn't even know what Locals was. I hear you guys mention it, but he had to open the app and show me he pays for it. But he listens to every one of your guys' shows. He loves it.
I got a message. So I had a conversation with Alberto last week, and Alberto sent me a message, and he said, I walked into an SSPX mass today, and a gentleman called me out and said our show was great. His wife, the parish secretary, said they really like Anthony because he's very authentic and think him and Rob have a really good chemistry together. So
cool.
People are digging the show, man. So that's very cool.
They remember when we were at that church in Manhattan and they recognized you.
That was so funny,
That
right? I took Father Nix to go to Holy Innocents and Rob. Yeah, the three of us.
Yeah.
Rob and Father Nix, we all went to Holy Innocents, and somebody came up to me and Rob, and they were like, "Oh my God, you're here!" It was like this. She'd never seen us before, and for her to meet me and Rob together in Manhattan, it was like her visiting Manhattan. It was a pretty cool experience for her. So, all right, yeah, guys, if you go on Twitter, you can comment on Twitter. We do see all of the comments. So I listen
and the
to every
secretary
episode.
there listen to my podcast. So I shout out to her too.
And yeah, guys, go subscribe to Padre Peregrino also. I think we.
Oh, I wasn't fishing for that. I just wanted to mention the secretary at Holy Innocents. Really sweet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But we do forget to plug your channel. I mean,
oh, thanks. Yeah,
obviously. Yeah, Padre Peregrino on YouTube, plus Padre Peregrino blog is always good, and he's on Telegram too, guys. So, all right, we will see you guys on the other side. We're gonna get into some of this.